Hi, Brent Johnson with NJ Advanced Media, the Star Ledger, and NJ.com. We're here at the Eagleton Institute of Politics at Rutgers University, and we are hosting a candidate forum with the third-party and independent candidates running for New Jersey governor. In case you didn't know, there's a governor's race on November 7th to replace Governor Chris Christie, who is leaving office. Many people know the Republican and Democratic candidates, but a lot of people may not know there are 5 third-party and independent candidates in the race. And the polls show that not everybody seems to be happy with the Republican and Democratic contenders. So we're going to speak to each of the independent ones today. And I'm here with Seth Kaper-Dale. So thank you for joining us,
Brent,
Seth.
thanks for having me.
First, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for governor.
So my wife and I are co-pastors of the Reformed Church of Highland Park. We've been there since 2001, so 16 years we've been in place. And I've been a community organizer and a community activist the whole time that I've been in ministry. Some of the things that I've done, I've built a housing corporation that now has 23 buildings, and we house 125 people. And our tenants are homeless veterans. That was our response to the Iraq War. Youth aging out of foster care. That was our response to the crisis of young people bouncing around the system as children and being emancipated into poverty. We've built housing for chronically homeless, mentally ill adults. We have those houses in Newark, New Brunswick, and in Highland Park. We have housing for Rutgers students who are coming out of prison through the Mountain View program. So we have a whole house just dedicated to making sure students coming out of prison have a place to live. So that's one project. We have a Global Grace Cafe where every chef is a refugee or an asylee. We have an immigration visitation program where we go to the detention centers around the state and make sure that people coming to this country feel loved and respected, even though they're locked up in jail and treated like criminals when they're seeking asylum. So that's the kind of thing I've done throughout my life, and that's me in a nutshell.
So I didn't mention before, but you're the Green Party candidate. You're
Yes.
the Green Party nominee, so I wanted to make that clear. So what do you think is the top issue facing New Jersey, and what would you do to fix it?
Yeah. So let me tell you why I'm running for governor and then lead it into there.
Yeah.
So the theme of my platform is the last are first. And a scripture text that matters to me is the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And we say that thing, we practice that in my community, and we walk out into a New Jersey where the first are first are first are first. And I think it's actually a dangerous way to run a world. When you first have to line the pockets of those at the top, and when you hope that there's enough of a trickle to meet the middle, you never have anything left for those who are last. So I believe in a wellspring from below mentality, and that if a society is really going to thrive, you ought to look very carefully and listen well to the people who've been left out, the people who structurally are left out of systems. And that's what I do in my ministry, and I believe that that's what we need in New Jersey. We need to start with the last being first. And I believe it's the reason why 61% of the voters didn't come out last time. Those who were registered to vote didn't come out to vote. I think people feel like they belong to the flyover communities of New Jersey, those places that never get touched by politicians. And that's where I've started each and every day of my campaign, is talking to those who've been left out.
So do you have an issue that's important to you, and what would you do about it?
Mm-hmm. So if the last are first, then no one should ever lose the right to vote. A vote is a vote is a vote. A human should never lose their ability to be a human. So if people go to jail, they're voting. If the last are first, then if you're in jail, you shouldn't be making $1 a day as an indentured servant, especially when we have the worst black to white ratio in a prison system of almost any state around. So these are issues that matter if the last are first. If the last are first, then the 500,000 people living in New Jersey who are undocumented need to be protected with sanctuary state status. They need to be able to get driver's licenses, and their children need to be respected. If the last are first, then the 438,000 kids that live in this state in households that bring in under $30,000 a year need to be treated with dignity and respect, and their families need to be eligible for housing vouchers if their families are that poor, and need to be given all the types of services that can allow them to thrive, and their families need $15 an hour minimum wage. So those are the last or first agenda items. But people say, how do you pay for all that? And the beauty of all this is a lot of the things that matter to the last also matter to the middle. Single payer Medicare for all is my single biggest issue, and I believe that if we could get that right, we would deal with issues around property taxes. We would deal with the pension and benefit fund. We would deal with the inability to help pay for the tuition costs in our state universities and community colleges. All of these things would happen much better if we had single-payer Medicare for all. It would dramatically reduce the amount of money that we waste on the private, unregulated health insurance companies that are a huge part of why our property taxes are so high. About 20% of our property taxes in all 565 towns go to pay for unregulated health insurance. We could dramatically reduce thermostat with single-payer Medicare for all.
So they often say, how can an independent win when Republicans and Democrats have such a grip on the system? What separates you from the Republican and Democrat running this year? And, how do you think you can win?
I don't believe in forced conversion in religion, and I don't believe it in politics. I have not spent my time trying to convince somebody who's dyed in the wool blue or dyed in the wool red to turn around and vote for me. The last or first. I want to come up with a wellspring from below where we take seriously a truly progressive agenda that speaks to people who are not totally tied into the two-party system. And if some progressives who live within other places want to see that this is a new wave, a new way to actually build a better world, then they're more than welcome to join in. But we've got the 61% starting out. The rest of the parties can fight over the 39%, the last or first.
So anyone in the crowd, you guys have a question? Yes.
Your policies seem to be like an anti-Trump type thing, like the exact opposite of what they're doing at the White House. How would you, as governor, interact with the President of the United States with policy and interaction?
We would definitely be anti-Trump in the way that we stand up to
real quick. The question was how.
Yeah.
Question was how can you fight Trump policies from New Jersey in a sense, right?
So without a doubt, there are states, there are governors who are standing up against Trump. I would want to see myself among those governors. And I think it's important that we not back down when there's a hate crime president carrying out racial and ethnic cleansing under the guise of immigration reform, for example. So being a strong sanctuary state is what I would want to be. And if that means risking losing federal revenue, then we have to face that. One of the things that I offer is a strong public bank, and I know there's another candidate who's talking about that, and I'm glad it's coming up elsewhere. We need to be able to create our own revenue during this time where a lot of the revenue streams from the federal government are at risk, not just around any one topic. Across the board, our revenues are at risk, and we need to be able to create our own revenues through a public bank.
John, did you want to ask a question?
As a third-party candidate, as a Green Party candidate, last year the Green Party candidate for president received more votes than the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. So many people think Hillary Clinton would now be president were it not for the Green Party candidate. How do you think about that in terms of running now? You've just expressed a number of views that seem much more aligned with Democratic candidate than Republican candidate, but do you not care really which of them wins?
Ask the first part, please. The first part was, do I think that it's possible for a third-party candidate to?
No, I guess the question is, somebody is going to be elected governor, and if there's a contest between, as Brent said, the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate as people getting the most attention, if people vote for you instead of voting for one of those people, that can, without electing you, have some impact on who wins.
So it deeply bothers me that Phil Murphy's been stealing my votes. There is not a progressive bone in that position at all. And it bothers me, too, that a lot of the Bernie types within the red world who know that we need economic reform that benefits the public, that they haven't been looking at us either. So hopefully before November 7th, folks will realize that I'm the best choice for governor of New Jersey.
I'm going to give you the final word. What would you like to say to close things out?
It has been an honor to go around the state this entire year. Every day, and I think it's been like 300 times now. You know, I've gotten up in the morning because I've been running since last October 30th. Is when the Green Council decided to nominate me. I've been out in communities and talking to people who take two buses to get their kids to a qualified child care center and thinking about just what a shortage of qualified child care centers we have. I've been talking to folks who say, when I was a kid, we used to have organized recreational sports, but now there's nothing for our teens. And they really mean it. I've looked into their large cities and found that there is no organized recreational sports. Or they'll say there used to be an after-school program funded by 21st Century Learning Center grants, and those grants have just dried up. So that has been the beauty, is actually listening to people, hearing their pain, and then dreaming together about what a better New Jersey could look like.
Well, Seth, thank you for being here. And thank you for watching NJ.com. Election Day is November 7th. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Brent.